Okay, folks, you just grab your seat, put your seatbelts on. Okay, for those of you who don't know us, I'm Mike, this is Barb. We're part of the church here and have been for a number of years. And in Rob and Deb's absence, they've asked if we would share this morning. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but anyway, here we are. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to share our story. It's going to be more of a conversation and a bit of a testimony about our journey. And we just point out at the beginning that Barb and I aren't special. We've all got a story. We've all been on a journey. And so the hope from us sharing this morning is that you'll take some encouragement and you'll probably find some similarities in your life to what we share. Even though the circumstances might be different, I think you'll find that you'll probably connect with some of the things that we talk about. So, we'll get started. Barb and I are going to tag team here a little bit. So you can see the picture up there, the unexpected journey. I think most of you know where that's from. And that kind of depicts our life. There's been lots of twists and turns and it's unexpected. But at the end of the day, we all love a story. I love a story. I love movies. I love a good book. I love the adventure. I love all the dramas. I love all those things because that's what keeps you interested. And so, like The Lord of the Rings is a classic, or The Hobbit's a classic. And it gets you in because there's a context to it. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to give you a little bit of a context about where we've come from and some of the things that have happened in our life, so as we can then share what we've learnt, what God's been doing, it hopefully starts to make sense. So as I said at the beginning, I love stories. One of my favourite movies was Ben-Hur. It's a great story. The original, not the remake, that wasn't too bad. But also, if we look at the Bible, there's lots of great stories. You can read the story of Moses, of Abraham, David, Jacob, and who became Israel, Joshua, of course, Jesus, the greatest story, and then, of course, in the New Testament with people like Peter and Paul, etc. In 2013, we received a prophetic word from Dawkins. Now, some of you here at the time might remember he ran a conference over a few days, and we just started coming here, and we didn't know him, he didn't know us. And he gave us a very detailed prophetic word at the time. And one of the things he said, we're not going to go into all of that, but one of the things he said was, I saw you guys on a road, and it looked scary. But then on closer look, he said, no, it's not scary, this is an adventure. So throw your hands up in the air. It's like a roller coaster. You're going to go on the ride of your life. And so really, that's our story.
Yeah, about now I started screaming when Mike said that because I thought, I've been on too many adventures, thanks. But the prophetic words, I just wanted to speak into that. Prophetic words are spoken over us or about a situation. And if you test those words and you trust the source and you believe it's from God, then we have to trust the process and we have to trust the timing. Prophetic words do not have an expiry date. And even though we want them to happen when we want them to happen, they will happen when God wants them to happen. So we have to trust God and trust his timing.
When I became a Christian, I'm just going to go back a little bit and talk about, we came together in 1991, and that's really where our story starts. But prior to that, just for some context, I'm the eldest of 4 kids. I grew up in a great home, great parents. I came to faith as a 25-year-old. And one of the first scriptures, in fact, the first scripture that spoke to me as I started reading the Bible was Ephesians 2:10. For we are Christ's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And that kind of blew my mind. I thought, so God already knew about this. And so that was an incredible verse to me. And it's not so much a life verse, but it's one that God really impacted my life with right from the get-go. So in the beginning, I'm going to start at the beginning, Barb and I, and then Barb can add her perspective on that as well. We'd both been married before, and we both came out of failed marriages, and neither one of us wanted those marriages to fail, but there we were. And so I came to a place in 1991. I was actually working as a rehabilitation consultant in a facility down south, and I was running a business there with a physiotherapist. And at the same facility, there was a gym, like a circuit class. And the guy who ran that asked me to fill in some classes for him. And guess who started coming to the classes? Not that I noticed her at all. I kind of did. And so anyway, that began a journey with us and discussing, just getting to know each other. And we'd just hang around and talk outside the door of the gym. And Barb had two little children at that time. They were 4 and 3. And so we just got to talking. And it was kind of obvious from my point of view that I thought she was okay, very attractive. That I was a Christian, Barb wasn't a Christian. And so I got to a point, I thought, well, if this is going to go anywhere, I need to talk about what my faith is to me. And so I wrote it in a letter to her, because I was too gutless to say it face to face. And I just poured it all out, what it meant to me as a Christian. It's not just something I do on Sundays, it's who I am. And so I kind of left it with her because I didn't know where it was going to go. And so that's what I did.
Can I interject there? Because when he gave me this letter, I thought, I didn't actually know what it was going to contain. And when I read that he was a Christian and it was something that was part of his life and something that he didn't just contain to a Sunday, I thought, oh, that's lovely for you. I believe in God too, but I'm out of here. And literally could not get out of that area quick enough. And then God started speaking to me. And I hadn't actually heard his voice before. And it was just a sense more than anything that he was real. And coming back to my marriage, my first husband left when my children were 1 and 2. And so I was thinking I was going to find it very hard to trust somebody again. And God told me to trust this man with me, myself, and my kids. And so with that, and I started sort of... couldn't get it out of my head about God and about Mike, and I'd actually bought a house in Morford Vale next to some family that were Salvation Army people, and they'd been praying for 2 years that I would find God and find a godly man. And I gave my heart to on their doorstep to God that day, and then I hope I'm not giving away anything, so that was in the December, and then the March, 3 months later, we were married. And we've been married 28 years.
Good.
I always lose count, 28 years.
Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, that's it. So it was, yeah, and any young people here thinking that's a good plan, meet and get married in 3 months, we're not saying that's the way you should necessarily go. But it's almost like God was redeeming the time for us because we both, we wanted to be married the first time around. We didn't want that to end. And then, anyway, God did this thing. He just put Barb next to this couple who'd been praying. I mean, it was a setup, basically. And so we went out on our first date, and I had all these questions for Barb about who she was, what made her tick, what you think about various things, and I was just doing it, yeah, that's good, in my mind. So we got home, I took her home, and then I proposed on the front doorstep, and she looked at me with eyes like this going, you're kidding me, aren't you? I said, no. She said, okay. And 3 months later, we were married. And that was a God thing because, we don't normally roll that way. I'm pretty spontaneous, but not that spontaneous. So that began the journey. So we got married in, as Barb said, in March of 1992. I came to that marriage because I'd been to uni previously and I'd had some work, but I had an old beat-up Subaru, a vacuum cleaner, and a pair of Happy Pants. That was kind of what I owned. And so Barb didn't really marry me for my money. But we were happy, and we were living in this little place that Barb had bought. And then God started just to open doors for us. I had an opportunity through a guy I went through uni with. He just rang me out of the blue one day, and the timing was such that the guy I was working with said he was leaving, that I want to buy his business, which I didn't. That night I got a phone call from a friend I hadn't seen in years saying, hey, what are you doing? Would you be interested in a job? And that set me on this course of working in the orthopedic industry. And so that door opened up. It was a great job. Our income increased. And it's like everything was going great. I got promoted. And it just seemed like we built a home. Everything was just opening up for us. Life was great. We had a son, Joshua, together in 1994. And so we had all this going for us. We had a great lifestyle. We were going on holidays, there was travel. We bought an investment property. Barb didn't need to work during this period, and so that was it. We were living the dream, believing because we were tithing, serving in our local church, that this was God's blessing on our life. And we just, there's an assumption that this will just continue. So we were living in the blessings of God. And then 2007 came and the unravelling began. Do you want to make a comment? No.
Not yet.
Okay, so at that time I was managing my own business. I had 11 people working for me. It was going very well. And I kind of think of this as a bit like a plane. We were cruising at 30,000 feet. It was great. We were just sitting back there, lobster thermidor, just enjoying life. Then all of a sudden, the plane started to descend. It was kind of subtle at first. We didn't really pick up on it. I was presented with an opportunity that I thought was a fantastic opportunity, and turned out to be a disaster. And the saddest thing about that was it was an opportunity presented to me by a friend who was a Christian, and I trusted this guy. Ended up being not what it was presented as. There was a lot of stuff that went on there, and of course, a lot of money was lost through that process. So we, through that next several years, between 2007 and 2012, looked at a number of business opportunities. I'm never one to die asking or wondering, and so I looked at a whole lot of business opportunities, and in turn, every one of them failed. And then in 2013, we hit rock bottom, or so we thought. That's when we came here.
That didn't sound right.
Doesn't sound right. So Rob, no, that wasn't the problem. So we came here, and that was the beginning of another season in our life.
So one of the business opportunities that we ventured on was we went and invested into a coffee shop called Mokabar. It was actually a startup company. Then Mike was, he's always very positive, and so he thought this is going to work, and so we just kept throwing everything we could money-wise into this business. And it was at West Lakes, and so Mike was working there for no income. I was working at the school where I currently work now, at Emmaus, and I thought, well, I have to resign. I have to go and help my husband. I have to go and stand in the shop and make coffee and sell biscuits. I thought, I can do that. So I resigned from my job and told the line manager, I'm sorry, but I've got to go and help Mike. Yep, no problems. We're really sad to see you go. And he even cried, which was kind of nice. But anyway, then about 2 days after that, I felt really overwhelmed that God had said to me, no, you stay. You need to stay where you are. And I thought, but I need to go and help my husband. And he said, no, you stay. And so I would still help Mike when I could after school. And I said to Mike, I have to take back my resignation. I can't leave because God's told me to stay. And I know that that was one of the things that God had told me, because that's been the one constant. I'm still there. I've been there 10 years and I'm still there. And that's God's provision and God's grace that I am very grateful for.
Yeah, so as I've said, that's when the plane went from 30,000 feet, and now we're getting really low. And is this thing going to crash? Now, what we're talking about here is a financial issue. And I just want to point out that in life, we all face challenges. For us, it's been financial. And I'm sensitive to the fact that there are people here today who are going through stuff. It could be a health thing. It could be a financial thing. It could be a relational thing. It could be anything. For us, it was financial. And that was just our, if you like, our trial or our testing, if you want to look at it that way. So in that process, we lost the family home, a number of vehicles. My beloved Ducati had to go as part of that. Our savings, super, everything had gone. And so to put that into context also, Barb touched on it, we had received over 20 years various prophetic words. And, when you have all these words and you sort of park them, you don't, every now and then you draw them out and you think, okay, God, was that really you? But I think those of us who had significant prophetic words over the years will know when something is true. It just resonates. It sits there and you can't get it out of your mind, and it comes back every now and then. And there are a number of those words that would come back from time to time. So all the while this was going on, Barb and I said, look, we just have to keep trusting God. Keep believing that he can intervene. He can turn things around. And so we made that decision just to keep going. Are you going to say something? No?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. In 2015, it looks like the plane was about to crash. It started to take a bit of a lift. I thought, this is it. We're on our way again. An opportunity come to me for another orthopaedic company, and started out with a lot of promise that they were going to be able to deliver this, deliver that. It was going to be great. And everything they promised they could deliver, they couldn't deliver, and after a while that fizzled out too. So then I had a question. God, do you want me out of orthopaedics? Is this it? Is this your way of saying to me you have to move out of this industry? So now here we are at the end of 2019. And this year, I laid that thing down. I felt that God was saying, okay, I felt that he might have been saying, you've got to say goodbye to that industry. And I said, okay, Lord, if that's the case, I won't go looking there anymore. But this year, I've had 2 approaches from 2 different companies to become manager of their company. And the first process went for 6 weeks, and they wanted me. And then right at the last minute, they said, no, we've got someone internally we're going to give it to. So I thought, okay, God, well, that's you. And then as of a few weeks ago, I went through an 11-week process with another company who said they wanted me, only to find out right at the last minute, someone stuck their hand up and turned and said, I want that job too. And so I'm going, all right, God. So the initial reaction is when something like that happens is you go, okay, yep, definitely want me out of orthopaedics. But there's this sort of sense of a kick in the guts, really. And because you start to get your hopes up, you start to think, because we've been living on we're not complaining, but we're just saying the reality of our life is that we have to be very, very careful about what we do. We don't go on holidays. We don't, do the things we used to do because we've just had to draw everything in. We start to think, oh, maybe we can fix this bit of the house, or we can do whatever. We start to dream again, and then that rug's pulled out from you. So I've been working different jobs. I'm a casual bus driver. I'm thinking, how did I get here? But here I am. I've done cleaning jobs. And then I had this thought that sometimes I feel like Matt Damon character in Downsizing. You ever seen that movie? It's not a very good movie, but it's an interesting movie. He gets shrunk down to 5 inches. I thought, that's me. I feel like I've been shrunk down to this big. My world is so small now, that's where I live. And that's what it felt like. So when you go through such a long season, now, and for us, as I said, that plane was cruising in 2007, and now we are in 2019. So this has been a long process. The plane actually hasn't crashed, even though we thought it would a few times. So when you go through this long season struggle, you ask a lot of questions. You go, did I do something wrong? And then you think, well, what's the enemy's role in all this? And one of the things that Robbie Dawkins said to us, he said, I saw a sniper aimed at your house. And anyone who knows anything about snipers would know that you don't see them. They just, from a long distance, they just take you out. And so we just saw over a period of time, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. Well, how did that happen? And it's just like we didn't see it coming. And so what we did what most Christians do in these situations. So we prayed a lot. We fasted. We sought prayer and counsel from trusted friends. We did everything we knew how to do, and we put on the armor of God. We repented. We did the spiritual warfare thing, and over again, we forgave those who had wronged us. You name it, we did it. We didn't leave anything to chance. I don't think anyone's come up to us and said, have you thought about doing this? Or, yes, we've done that. Yes, we've done that. Yes, we've done that. And so we didn't leave anything out just in case. Even some of the stuff I thought, I never really believe this, but I'm going to do it anyway, just in case, because you get to that point. So it seemed like we were in the wilderness, or we were in this desert place. And initially, the wilderness is an interesting thing because there's two perspectives you can have on that. One is that you're in the wilderness because the devil's taking you out there. And that's one way of looking at it. I'm not saying, the wilderness can't be that way. But when Jesus was in the wilderness, the Holy Spirit led him into the wilderness. And the enemy came, and then when he was in the wilderness, the enemy came to tempt him. And so I feel even though we were in the wilderness, God was there with us. He always gave us the ability to overcome those things by standing on the word and standing on the promises. And so we just felt, okay, this is a battle now. The battle that we're in is a battle for our thoughts. It's a battle for our soul over our spirit. You know, your soul is your mind, will, and your emotions. And our spirit is that part of us, that connects to God, that eternal part. And so we were trying to discern what God was saying, at the same time, not allowing our circumstances to dictate our behaviour. I had this little thought that came to me as I was preparing this, and it was our perceptions of what we believe to be true are often based on our circumstances, and that's where a lot of us find ourselves. So the thought is, things are going well, so God loves us. Things are not going so well, therefore God is remote from us. That's what the mind will tell you.
I just want to add too that I actually started journaling in 2012, and I'm going to read some of my writings just every now and then, just random. So I was flicking through. It's actually good to look back on some of the things that God has told you. And the 30th of December 2012, I wrote this. Rob at church prayed for me. Mike was working, and he said that we are like a rubber band. God is pulling us back and stretching us to the breaking point. We feel we will snap, but we won't. And because he has pulled us back so far, the greater and further we will be launched when he releases us. That was 2012. And coming back to that expiry date that I talked about before about prophetic words, I'm thinking, wow, I still feel like I'm that rubber band being stretched and stretched and stretched. And often, and my good friends will know in this room, that I feel like I'm going to break, but I haven't. So it's good to journal. I'm going to read you some more from this later on. No.
Oh, it's okay. Right, so then the thought, then you have these other thoughts. What if the potter, being God, wants to make something different to what we think or want? And so this is where you have to really press into God. Or, alternatively, what if the process of God's moulding, shaping and refining us is harder, longer and more painful than what we were expecting? So these are the questions you have to face. And I think when you're honest about facing these questions and taking them to God, he does actually provide you with a sense of peace and a sense of it's okay in the midst of that. But you have to take it to God, because if you don't, we've found that we'll wander off in this rabbit trail and get into all sorts of emotional mess.
Just read another little bit. It says, every week that goes by, it seems our situation gets increasingly more and more desperate. Yesterday, I spent the whole day praying and fasting, going into spiritual warfare, crying, being still, and yet I didn't seem to get anything. It seems God is remote through this. And again, I look back on that and I'm thinking, even though I felt that he was remote, he was always there, carrying us and sustaining us and just providing for us. And I'll explain a bit more about that later.
So there we are left with, we still have these emotions. I don't think it's not healthy to ignore emotions. Emotions are a God-given thing. But we have these emotions. So what to do with these emotions of anger, disappointment, grief and loss? So I've gone from managing my own successful business to sort of cleaning jobs and driving a bus, and I'm going, how did I get here? How did that happen? And so this is the battle that we face. It's the power of agreement, the battle for the mind. Who and what am I agreeing with? And so we've had to constantly come back to this place of who does God say we are? Who is God in this situation? And there's all those other voices. There's the voice of the enemy, which seems to be a lot louder at these times. And then there's a voice of your own voice of thoughts of doubts and whatever. And then there's the Job's comforters that we all encounter from time to time, giving you advice, what about this, what about that. Now, and that's not saying that advice isn't worthwhile having, but sometimes it's not helpful. I'll just say that. Sometimes it is. Okay, and then also the power of the tongue. God really started speaking to me about what I was saying, about what was going on, because it's very easy to get into a woe is me and life's not fair attitude. And you can feel justified in doing that because you can point to all these things and say it's not fair. If I'm doing all these things and I'm being obedient, why is this happening? And so it comes back to the power of the tongue and the power of agreement. In James, where it talks about the tongue, what you say. The tongue is, this little thing in part of our body, but it can be so powerful. It can, set a forest and on fire, and it can steer the ship off course. So God was really saying at this time, watch what you say. Be careful about what you say. And, it's really difficult sometimes to bite the tongue. It's very difficult. But, at the end of the day, it's a battle for the mind. Am I going to submit to the Spirit of God, or am I going to submit to my own emotions? So during this time, God led me to study the lives of Moses, Abraham, David, and in particular Joseph. And what I learned from that is quite interesting, and it touches on what Barb said. Each one of these people, and you could add others, but each one of these men had promises given, had prophetic words, or if sometimes angels came and appeared. And we know the story that the time of the promise to the time of the fulfillment was years. In the case of Moses, he was in the desert for a long period of time. Abraham was 25 years. Okay, and in between time, what did he do? I'll just help God out here a little bit. This is a plan. God, I'll give you a hand to actually make this thing come about. And that's always a temptation. God, maybe if I do this, will sort of, trigger you to, help us. David, he was anointed and then spent roughly 13 years running from King Saul. He had the opportunity to kill him. He didn't. And then Joseph, he was a young man, probably foolishly and a little bit sort of naively, sprouted what he'd seen and offended his brothers. And that's sometimes what happens when you're young. But, and so then he goes and we know the story. He was sold into slavery. He was then put into a house, Potiphar's house, and then gets falsely accused, finds himself in prison. Now, at that point, he's probably thinking, how did I get here? What did I do to deserve this? And then, of course, there's that season where he's in there and he meets the cupbearer and the baker, and he's able to help them out. And he's going, well, don't forget me, will you? Will you remember me? Of course, they promised to, and of course, they forget him. And so I think when I read through this story, you can read the story, but he was a man. He was a young man still. But he would have had thoughts and emotions. He might be thinking, well, God, where are you? God, didn't you give me this promise? God, why is it taking so long? And so, yeah, I'm sure that's what he was going through. The other thing about Joseph's life that spoke to me really powerfully was that it says he was put in charge of the prison because the prison manager, whatever you call it, he saw something in him. He saw the integrity. He saw something in him. So even in his captivity, even in his situation where he was wrongly imprisoned, falsely accused, he was still acting with integrity, and it was recognized. And the thing about that was when that call finally came and he was summoned before Pharaoh, he was ready. He was ready because God had done all that preparation in him, that character building. And I'm sure if, one day when I get to have a chat to Joseph, I want to hear it from his mouth, but I think he'd say something like, what, even in that dungeon, God was with me. He was speaking to me. He was refining me. He was actually making me grow up into the man I needed to become. Because at the end of the day, God is more interested in our character than we are sometimes.
I just want to say too, journeying through this with Mike was not what I expected my life to be. I actually didn't really know what my life was going to be like. I just knew that I was supposed to be with Mike and that was the end of it. But watching him grow through this and go through this as well, I've seen Mike very rarely does he buckle. When he buckles, he goes under for a few days and then he pops up again and believes and truly, truly believes all of the promises that God has spoken over us. And he's a very faithful man in that way. It's frustrating sometimes because I can't even get to that plane, that level, because he is just so focused on what God is saying, not what our circumstances look like, not what has happened, but what will happen. And God is good and God is faithful. And Mike is an amazing man like that. He's got an incredible gift of faith. So I just wanted to say that publicly.
Thank you, Honey. So there are some principles. So during this journey, there are some principles and some non-negotiables that Barb and I hold fast to. This is what we've learned. So, did you want to?
I should tell one story. I'm just flicking through my journal as I'm reading this. And I remember one time Mike was actually at a meeting. I can't remember where he was. I think it was a church meeting. And I rang him up and I said, "Honey, it's raining." He goes, "I know." I'm going, "But it's raining on the inside of our house." And he's going, "What?" I mean, it's pouring down the inside of our house. And he's going, "Oh, no, be right, just put some towels down." I went, "Oh, okay, fine." Literally, it was raining on the inside. Anyway, so we got this guy come out. We thought, how are we going to fix this? We've got no money. And insurance covered part of it. And then he came and he goes, "Look, I've got some good news. You will get a little bit of insurance money for this, but your whole ceiling's coming down." I thought, oh, excellent. So we had we had no ceiling in our house. And I remember looking back and thinking about these things and thinking, what God has done for us. He provided actually a new ceiling with new lights. It looks better than it was before. But God's faithfulness in everything is always there. And you have to remember, and I've actually physically, Carolyn knows this, I've actually built a memorial of stones that I look back and I remember what God has done. And I remember all of his provision. And in this room, there are so many people that have blessed us, friendship-wise, financially-wise, just being the people that we need around us at any given time. And God speaks to those people just when you need it. And I'm sure that many of you have experienced that way as well. God's just prompted you to do something or bless or say or encourage or whatever it might be. And without people like that in our lives, I'm not quite sure really where we'd be.
That's right. So, I just want to reiterate that. There's been so many friends who have blessed us. It used to be the other way around. When we were, living the life, we loved to bless people, and we did. We thought it a privilege. But, it says it's easy to give than to receive. It's hard when you're on the other end, so it's very humbling. But we've been humbled by the generosity and love of people who have said, "Look, can we help you out?" And that's a good thing, I think, sometimes, because otherwise pride can get in there and think, "No, I like being the giver, but, no, don't receive." We have to learn that God sometimes puts you in both places. So some of the non-negotiables, these are just some things that God said to me. God is good. That's it. God is good. He's always good. God is faithful. God is unchanging, but he's also mysterious. We don't always understand what's going on. God always has a plan. God's timing is not always according to our timetable. And as Barb's already said, true prophetic words rarely happen quickly. There is no plan B as far as we're concerned.
Now I'm about to say something about that.
So, I'm just going to say, before we get to that, that was the thought of returning to Egypt that kept coming up, "Oh, this isn't working out, let's go back to Egypt." And we've had that thought, let's go back and do something else. But we've had to say, "God, no, this is it. There's no plan B. We're here with you together, and that's it."
When Mike talks about plan B has come into my mind quite a few times. And I'll say, don't leave your husband. Don't run away, even though I've thought about it. Mike's always been the second person I've told. Usually it's a few other people in this room that I tell first. And they go, "Don't be silly, Barb, you'll be fine." And then I tell Mike, "Oh, I can't do this anymore." But of course we can. And so one of the non-negotiables is that you stay together through the good times and the bad times. And many of you know that when you say your vows, and I don't know if it's, old school or not, but it is for better, for worse, for richer or poorer, sickness and in health, And I know that there's a lot of people in this room that have stuck together through sickness, through financial hardship, through emotional and relationships. And that is a non-negotiable. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's not. It's hard, but that is a non-negotiable. So when young people in the room and they think about getting married and settling down and whatever, it takes commitment. It takes stickability. And it's really easy when things are going well. When you don't have severe trials, it's easy to go through life because everything seems okay. But those hard times, we need to remember that we need to stay together. And there's a quote from Graham Cook that says, "It is impossible to grow in faith when everything is going well." And I thought about that, and I thought that's actually true. It's through the really hard times that your faith grows and the roots go deep, and you know what really matters. Yep. And then in Romans 5:3, this is old school, because this is my Bible that Mike gave me in 1991.
It's my first Christmas present to her.
I know.
She looked at me
and
thinking, what have I married you?
all my non-Christian friends said to me, "Oh, so what did Mike get you?" I went, he got me a book. "Oh, really? What sort of book was it?" "Oh, it's a Bible." I can't even find Romans.
Let me find it while you're talking.
And I said, "It's a Bible." And they went, "Really? You got a Bible?" And I went, "Yep." And this has been my trusty go-to. So in Romans 5, it says, "Therefore, we have been justified through faith. We have peace, and God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith and this grace in which we now stand. And we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit who has given us." Yeah. God does not disappoint. We make it sound like he is because he's not coming through to our timeline, but he does not and will not disappoint.
That's true. So a few more of these non-negotiables. The importance of spending quality time with God, both in his word and in the secret place. You've got to spend time, you've got to get away and spend time with God. It's only during those times that you can really hear that still small voice. In the clutter and busyness of life, it's very difficult to do that if you just try and fit him in wherever. So it's very important to do that. The importance of keeping our hearts soft towards God and others. It's another critical thing, because we can harden our hearts because of things that happen to us, or disappointment. Hope deferred makes the heart grow sick. But a promise fulfilled is a tree of life. We all want the second part, but sometimes it's just a matter of sticking at it. The importance of, and Barb said this also, the importance of staying connected and not withdrawing from service and or ministry. Because you can think, "Oh, life's really tough for me now. I'm just going to take time out, let someone else do it." But it's in the serving, it's in doing that actually, it's one of those mysteries in God. The peace that transcends their understanding comes. You think, I shouldn't be feeling like this, but God is faithful. And he knows our circumstances. And the thing is not to withdraw. That's what the enemy wants to do. It's kind of like that herd, when you're together, when you're all together in a family or, congregation, you are together, you got one another's backs. It's quite like those animals that, they pick off the weak one. The lion's waiting there to pounce on the weak one, or the young one, the feeble one. And as soon as you get off from, being connected, you're vulnerable. And you're going to get taken out one way or another. And God can still restore, but don't put yourself in that position, is my advice. And also, God is the king of comebacks. Never forget that. I mean, you look at all these stories with Abraham and the ones I shared earlier, Joseph and so on. So God is able to do immeasurably more than what we can hope or imagine. So we just need to stay in that place. I've written some things down here. That the other thing too that God's been speaking to me about is what I just phrased the understanding of opposites. And so there's fear. We go through fear. The opposite of that is love. Love casts out fear. And so that when we're confronted with situations or circumstances which are beyond our control, we cannot allow fear to determine how we're going to respond. We have to press into the love of God, because it's the love of God that will actually then bring that peace, and your heart will be settled. Bitterness and unforgiveness. This is a really big one. You can get really bitter towards God, towards others, towards your circumstances, towards one another. And then unforgiveness can come in. That hardens your heart and makes it very difficult. So you have to keep your heart soft. So forgiveness is really important. And you need to forgive yourself sometimes, because I've made some mistakes, I trusted people at certain times, and I'd look back and think, why was I so naive to trust that person? And it's cost me financially. So, I had to forgive myself as well. Barb had to forgive me. Depression. We can easily get depressed, but we have to press into hope. Our hope is in God. And, it's... for every one of these sort of conditions, there is the God antidote. There's the opposite. Unbelief versus faith. It says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so there's always these challenges. Whenever we go into any of these areas, you go, okay, I'm doubting. So what's the opposite to that? God, what do you want me to focus on? Rather than that thing, what's your solution? The victim mentality we can all get into. And I think we get into that when we don't understand our identity in Christ as a son or a daughter. When we understand who we are, we leave that victim mentality behind, because again, it's very easy to get into that self-pity, have a pity party amongst yourselves. And you can always find friends to have that pity party with, don't get me wrong. And there's times we've been there, I thought it felt pretty good to have this pity party, but you can't live there because it leaves you feeling empty. And then anger. You can get angry. You get angry at God, angry at others, angry at one another, angry at life, angry at circumstances. But we have to seek the peace of God. We have to seek that peace and say, God, I'm feeling really angry. I need your peace now. And God is faithful if we press in. And so to finish, and we've got a few things to say about what does the future hold. I think you want to say something there.
I think it's really important to know that we are sitting up here and we're not experts. Mike touched on about movies and things like that. I feel like our life is like a series, and it's like season 1, season 2, season 3, and it just keeps going and keeps going. So we are not experts, but I think what we have learnt over this long journey, and it's not just been, as Mike has said, a month or two, it's been year after year after year. And sometimes I get really worn down, and my anger comes out, and my frustration comes out, and I'll just go and have a pity party. And those who know me know that I do that every now and then. But what I've learnt is I can't stay there. And my journey is not just about me. My journey is about other people coming up behind me. What am I going to tell other people how to get through hard times if I haven't been through hard times myself? How am I going to be able to encourage someone when they hit rock bottom, whether it be whatever situation? Because it's the same lesson that we're learning, that we have to trust God in absolutely everything. And so if I don't go through these hard times, how am I going to help others? And we always have to be looking about how we can help others. It's not about us. And so we have to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. We have to remember what he's told us, that he is good, as Mike said, as he is faithful, that he never leaves us and never forsakes us. And so even though honestly, this is nothing to what, we've just given you a tip of the iceberg of what this has been like, but I know that it has made us stronger. And we just stick it out.
Yeah, so this is our journey to date. So what does the future hold? In Psalm 139:16, it says, "You saw me before I was born. Every day was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed." That says to me, God has a plan. I'm not forgotten. God made me with an intention. All of us were in his mind, in his thoughts before one of us came to be. So I'm the eternal optimist, as Barb will tell you, and I believe that our future is bright. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what it's going to mean financially either, but I just know that God is good and faithful, and I'm very optimistic about the future. In Romans 4:20-21, in referencing Abraham, Paul says, "No unbelief made him waver concerning the promise of God, but he grew strong in his faith as he gave glory to God, fully convinced that God was able to do what he promised." And we know that Abraham is referred to as the father of faith. And that's a promise. So unbelief, does make you waver. Okay, so we have to move from that place and say, Lord, I'm going to hang on. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to believe in you because you are faithful and I can stand on your promises. So our journey isn't over. We don't know what's around the corner. I think that's what you wrote, isn't it? We push on. We continue to run the race and trust God no matter what. Okay, because our lives are meant to glorify him.
And I just want to share too, and just finish off with this, that looking back is good if you are remembering what God has done. And I said to you before about, building that little pile of stones to remember what God has done. But looking back and longing for the past is not. It does not help you at all, and it has kept me bound often, and it's stunted my growth because I've looked back and thought, I wish it was then. I wish I had that. And I've actually had to really stop myself from doing that. And in my Bible, I've got here from CA during our trials, 2002, 2014. And it talks about, this is a friend that's in church, obviously, and it's talking about here that running the race, that we have to run the race set before us, that we have to keep going and moving forward. We can't give up. We can't stop and look in the past because it will hold us back. We can remember and learn from the past, but we must keep going forward. We must keep persevering, and we must allow people on each side of our track to cheer us on and let us run that race. Smith Wigglesworth says, "Nothing in the past is equal to the present, and nothing in the present can equal the things of tomorrow." I am excited about tomorrow. I'm scared about tomorrow, but I'm excited about tomorrow because I've got Jesus, I've got my husband, I've got friends, and I've got a great church. And so life is good, and life can get better.
Okay, guys, so what we'd like to do now is just to have some ministry time. And what I think would be good is if any of you are struggling just for the weariness of having to go through a long trial, if you're just saying, this has just gone on too long, it could be anything, come forward and we will stand together. We will stand with you and we'll encourage one another. Okay? This is not about us having anything other than, as Barb said, being a family, we're together and we can encourage one another. So if you want to come forward, we'll just stand with you and we can pray for one another, and we'll just pray God's encouragement and God's blessing and God's peace upon you. And also pray that God will bring you through whatever you're going through, obviously. So if that's you, we just invite you to come forward, and be our privilege to pray with you, stand with you, and invite anybody else who's part of the prayer ministry if you want to come and do that too. That'd be great. So thank you.